Well, kia ora everyone. I'm going to just make that full screen. It's great to see you here. I know it's been 3 hours already so far, and this is the 4th hour. So congratulations for making it through to the end. And I promise to have a very interactive session. So if you are feeling a little bit lagging in energy, hopefully it'll be okay. We'll make it through. Now that I'm the host, I'm just going to make sure I let everyone in. It's the only drawback and of me being the host, but that's all right. Okay, right.
I can do that.
No, it's totally fine. Okay, so I've got this first slide here, not because I want to talk about myself, because I always forget to talk about myself, but Anne actually introduced me, so it's totally fine. Normally when I do workshops, I just launch straight into the workshop, and then about like 5 slides later, I'm like, oh, hold on, I haven't told you who I am. But Anne summarized it, and what I want to focus on in particular is this aspect, which is that I like many of you have been teaching online, and at the university in the first half of the year, I actually was teaching for the whole first half of the year online. And so this kind of workshop is pulling off some of the activities that I came up with while I was teaching during lockdown. This is a YouTube video that you will never have access to. It is unlisted. I have a YouTube channel, but it's all unlisted videos. This was me on my keyboard in my office, recording. I was just at Andrew Marshall's session, just the one before now, and he was talking about using music in one of his units. And what they did is they took some notes from like Mary Had a Little Lamb and played around with that. Well, what I did is I took 4 chords that feature in like a whole bunch of pop music, and I set up my keyboard and I played all these 4 chords and sang all the different songs I could think of that use the same 4 chords. That is why you'll never see it. But it's one of those activities that we came up with, right? Teaching online, trying to engage with your students even though they're not with you physically in the classroom. And in particular, the course that I was working on, this course called Stats 100, here is what I call the year 13 course of my dreams. Because what it is a new course that I set up at the university about 3 years ago. And it's designed for students who haven't done year 12, year 13 maths. Students, or if they're feeling really sort of lacking confidence or feeling a little bit insecure about it. And so I got responsibility to create this course, and because it's targeted at like, you know, curriculum level 7, curriculum level 8, it basically has become my little playground for making a course that is totally in line with our curriculum. But as Anne was alluding to before, allows me to kind of explore some of these cool computational ideas and data science ideas. So I'm going to share a little bit about that in this talk. Okay, so you know why you're here. I made it pretty obvious that we're going to focus on music as the data context. We're going to do a little bit of everything, or as much as I can kind of fit in, I suppose, in a 45-minute sort of webinar. We'll think a little bit about some of the computational ideas. Although I have to say, I love all these things completely: music, statistics, computational stuff. I'm actually going to pull back a little bit on the computational aspects for this talk, just so they're things that you can take away and use right now for what the current sort of focus of our curriculum is. But I think hopefully they'll give you a little bit of an idea of where we could go to in the very, very near future. Okay, so this is what I said I was going to do in my talk, which I always like to put on my slides just to remind me, because, you know, sometimes I forget what I promised to share. But yeah, so we're going to share a bunch of kind of activities that I use that are kind of pitched at year 13 level or curriculum level 8 level. And I'm going to do it from this kind of data context of music. It's not from the angle of music as a subject. So we're not going to delve into any kind of music knowledge specifically. I'm just kind of loosely using the idea of music, you know, listening to music and so forth as a way to kind of draw students in, have a bit of fun, and kind of basically use kind of a cool set list of activities for teaching. All right, let me just check the chat box just in case someone telling me they can't hear me. No, okay, so let's do this. So we're going to focus on your tasks that you can use right now. I actually did another talk on data and music and so forth as my keynote last year at the NZAMP conference down in Wellington. So I'm not actually going to use the same activities as that talk, but I have linked this talk here, and you'll have access to these slides at the end of this talk as well, so that you can also click through those as well. So there's a whole bunch of other music related activities and ideas in that talk as well. But not for today, not for today. Now, we are going to be using an app. So while I'm just going to set up for the next part of this workshop, up here in the top right-hand side, if you click into bit.ly .stats playlist, actually, I'm going to move out of here for a second. Let's go back here. We're going to use this as the place to do a lot of interactive activities during this session. Yeah, head to bit.ly/stats playlist. I'm also going to grab the link to where that goes as well and chuck it in the chat box too for you. So you can either use that bit.ly or you can here use the link I've just put into the chat box and pop into there. That'll be awesome. And what I'm going to do is just make sure we're all there. If you're in the right place here, you should see this screen here. Okay, so the link's in the chat box now, just above. There's a bit.ly one, or there's the full long one that's in the chat box.
I can't see the link.
Oh no, it's because I put it to everyone, and so for some reason the default was everybody in waiting room.
It's there now. Want to tell people how to get out of Zoom?
Oh, press escape if you want to get out of Zoom. If you're locked in there somehow, you can press the escape key and that'll bump you out. And yeah, once you're in there, if you just put like I'm in the chat box, just so I know, and then we can get started. And this is what you'll see on my screen, is what you'll see. So essentially it's just the front, the first slide of my talk. But now, from now on, whenever I want you to do anything or change the apps or anything at all, leave that page open, and all you'll do is press refresh app. Now, if you press refresh app now, nothing will change because I haven't changed my special tool yet. This is a technique I use because if you think about my context now, I'm teaching in large lectures, big lecture. Well, I was teaching in large lecture rooms, not anymore, online. But I needed a way just to like have one place to send all my students to for any of my interactive activities. So this is what it is. Okay, we're all in, nearly. Okay, so let me flip back to my slides. So nothing's there, just leave that tab open. Okay, so what's going to happen, I was just saying to Anne before, I've got a whole bunch of hits to play. We'll just keep going until we run out of time, basically. Let's see how far we can get through my set list. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play you a song, and I want you to, well, I'm going to play you the introduction to a song, and I want you to listen to the song really, 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 really carefully, because I'm going to ask you some questions about the song afterwards. Now, obviously your sound should already be on, because you're listening to me. Hopefully you need your sound on. Okay, are we ready? Okay, so listen very, very carefully, and I'll play you this song. Hey, hold on, where'd the song go? Yeah, don't worry, Lisa, I can't hear anything either. Oh. Okay, hold on. It's very, very crucial that you can listen to the song. So I'm just going to bump out of here for a second, and I'm going to try it from my actual live slides, not the ones that are in my app, and see if that helps. It might be because for some reason it's been blocked in my special presenter app. So we'll try it again. Hold fire. I'm just make sure that I haven't muted myself. Okay. Oh.
I know the taste of my tears when they run down my face, yeah.
Ugh. Okay, hold on. Let me try it again. I'm not going to put people through while I'm playing the song to you. Sorry, people who are waiting. Let's try that again. Sorry. So now if you refresh the app on the page that you're on, and there's a little survey for you to fill out. If you could do that for me, that would be awesome. And then we'll go from there. I'll just give you a few moments to do that. I'm just going to get back out of there. So yeah, if you're so the instruction at the moment, sorry, Di, is to refresh the app, and that'll give you access to a Google form, and it's just asking you a few questions about that song that I just played to you. So if you just fill that out for me, that'd be awesome. I've actually got a second laptop down here, so I'm looking over here at your results to see where we're at. And when it looks like I got enough, I'll leave it. I mean, you can still complete it as well. That's totally fine. But that's looking about right. Okay, cool. So we're going to come back to that in just a moment. But the idea is that this song and features of the song is going to be the basis of a few activities that we'll work through now. But hopefully you'll see also as we go through these tasks that you could change up kind of the theme for this in lots of different ways. I've just chosen to use this one song as one piece of music as the basis for what we're going to do. Okay, so let me just make this full screen again. So that song actually is called The Greatest. It's by a New Zealand band called 660, which is actually really amazing. But what's kind of cool is I didn't really know about this band until I started using music in my teaching with students. And it's something I learned from them, like, you know, a band that I could listen to, being much older and not as trendy as them. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool. So, and I like the lyrics of the song as well. You would have heard the lead singer singing those as he was playing with this mystery instrument, which we'll get to in just a moment. But here's the lyrics here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use these lyrics for a little quick activity, which is a classic activity that you would have seen before, but we're going to put a bit of a twist on it by using the lyrics. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to select 5 of these lyrics, 5 of the words from these lyrics, any 5 that you want to, and we're going to have a look at the nature of the words that you chose. So if you refresh the app for me now, then you will have access to, refresh the app here. You'll have access to a nice little interactive version of these lyrics. So go ahead and choose 5 of those, any 5 that you want. Okay, so you'll need to refresh the app every time I ask you to refresh the app, otherwise you won't get the new, the new interactive. But go ahead and do that and pick me 5 words. So similar activities that you might have seen with this before, sometimes there's an activity where people pick different rectangles or different circles, or I think there's like a fish one that was around for a while. It's a really similar idea. We basically ask people as humans to select 5 words first, and then we can have a look at them. it looks like most of you have done it, so I'll just do it live as well, just for those people who are watching from home later on. So I might go in and choose 5 words like that. And then what it shows me here, those are the 5 words that I chose and the order that I chose them in. Those are the number of characters. And for this activity, we're going to include like the little comma thing, the apostrophe, as a letter, just because that's how I've coded it. You may disagree. And that's going to show me the sample mean there. Okay. So we've all done little samples of 5, not random samples, right? We've done little, what I might say is carefully selected samples. And now what we want to do is have a look at that data. Okay, so this is what was recorded from you, just so you can see. The data's gone into a Google Sheet behind the scenes. And that means that I can launch straight into the data and show you. So let's have a look at your sample means. So here you go, here we are. So according to you guys, actually let me just change this because we're focusing on the mean. So let's take away the box plot and let's add on the mean. There you go. So according to your brilliant selection of words, people, you know, there's different sample means from your samples of 5, but as a collective group, the mean of your means is 5. Now, I mean, it shouldn't surprise you that that may not be accurate. So let me just pop back here and I'll just show you the data that this plot's come from. It's here. So you can see here, this is your data being logged into a Google Sheet. These are the words that you selected. Just have a look at that for a moment. I think it's kind of cool. I'm really interested in what words people gravitate to first. And I can see taste sort of emerging already. And although we're not going to focus on analyzing which words you chose and in which order, there's actually something really cool that you could do with that as well. I think this person here knows the game as well, though. I think they may be trying to be that outlierish type sort of sample that we also might expect. Okay, so the thing is that the lyrics here, you know, here's each of the words that I gave you, and here's each of the word lengths. It turns out, actually I'm going to draw it for you. I'm going to turn on my drawing tool. Here we go. I'll show you what it is. It's actually all the way down here. Okay, so if you take all the words in those lyrics, take the length of them and average it, the mean for all the words is actually 3.8. So you can see immediately that we have got what we know as an example of sort of bias. So as humans, we've gone and chosen 5 words. We've worked out the mean from that sample, and we've ended up with kind of estimates of the overall mean that are very high, right? And this is something that we want to avoid when we do sampling, and this is why we talk about taking random samples, right? Okay, so I'm going to bump back here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the app to one where you don't get to choose yourself, but instead you have to use a random sample. So if you press refresh app now, now you don't get the choice. You have to press this button. So go ahead, refresh the app and press the button 5 times. And now the control is taken away from you, and we'll get random samples of 5 of the lyrics, the words from these lyrics. And then we can compare what they look like. And so I know, so there's a bunch of ways that you can talk about taking random samples, but I do like this one here. It's very like sort of, it's right there. You can see it happening. I'm not so interested in doing sort of like, you know, random number generating type stuff at all. That is something you could do, but this is not the point here. The point here is just to like put it into a position where the choice is taken away from you completely, and we're leaving it down to chance in terms of those words that are being chosen. So while you're doing that, let me just show you the data here is being updated. So now what we've got here is the sample means that are coming through from the random selections, which also gives us, you know, words that are coming out which are being chosen randomly as well, which I think is kind of cool. And then we can do the same thing here, as if I go back here, let me bump in here again, And now we can compare the data. So we can compare, looking at those sample means again, but now we have the method, okay? So what we see now, again, I'll just actually change that to means here. There we go. And it typically works pretty well because it's a random sampling method. Here's the mean of our random selection means, our mean of our means. I know there's lots of means going on, but that is obviously sitting much closer to 3.8 than our version when we did a careful selection. Okay? So yeah, that's one little activity that I do. You can use song lyrics. I've also used like things from like books, like the first sentence of Harry Potter. It just depends, but song lyrics is a nice kind of like music twist to put on it. And of course, that's because that's the song I played for you at the beginning as well. So that was kind of cool. If you, the app that I've used to do this is one that I'm going to make available, but you don't necessarily need the app because of course students can pick 5 lyrics themselves and count the words themselves. When it comes to the random selection aspect, if you wanted to, you could put what I have done here, put each of the words in its own row in a Google Sheet. And then what you could do is get students to highlight all of the words and then use the data randomize range function of Google Sheets. And if you do that, then they could take the first 5 as their random sample of words. And then if you've already preloaded all the word links for them, you can see there that's just a little formula, but then they could work out the mean of that random sample of 5 words. And you could do that, and you could collect the data through like a Google form or something like that. So yeah, there's ways around, there's other ways around of doing a similar thing. So yeah, so that's just a little activity. So that's one of my hits, okay? And that goes down really well, and it still seems to always work no matter how many times they might have seen that activity before. I've actually written this activity up. I've put a link down to the post. So you can see how that works. In that little post, I also talk about Stats Medic. It's a website. They've done a similar activity with lyrics. They focus on Beyonce, so you know, different music genres, different kind of motivation. But also, it's a really, really classic one as well. The most classic version of it is the Gettysburg Address, and looking at who wrote that, and looking at sampling words from that as well. So there's a range of ideas, but song lyrics, if we're in the music theme, is a pretty cool way to unpack it. Okay, hit number 1, right, let's move on. So I'm just looking at your results and I'll share them with you later, but it looks like most of you were pretty good at deciding on what instrument was being played as that song, as the singer was playing before. So what we're going to do is turn that into an activity, another activity. So I'm going to ask you to draw something, and again I've got an app for it, and yeah, actually let's just go for it. So if you oh no, here's the trick. You've only got 20 seconds, okay? So what I'm going to do is going to ask you to refresh the app, okay? And we'll just make sure that's loaded. So again, go here, refresh the app, and what you'll have access to is a drawing box here. Now, if you want to just check it works, just like, you know, move something around, but then press clear drawing. Don't submit it, because I'm going to tell you to draw a specific thing. Okay, but just want to make sure everyone's in there. We're ready to go before we do this. Okay, right, so here you go. So because we're in this sort of like song theme, you've got 20 seconds. I'm going to put my timer on over here. Hold on. Timer, where are you? Okay, here we go. So you've got 20 seconds to draw me the anticipation. Hold on. This is me putting my stopwatch on, sorry. Should have preloaded this. Okay, you've got 20 seconds to go ahead and draw me a guitar. Go, 20 seconds.
Oh, crikey, Anna.
Just try your best. Just try your best. Okay, that's 20 seconds, folks.
Oh, come on. I haven't even put the straight.
Submit it. Submit it. Submit it.
Oh.
Sorry, Anne and others. Just do it.
Just do it.
The 20 second cap will come up in a moment. Some people might already know where this is going to go, but Submit it.
It's done.
So Michelle's keynote this morning, well, I was at Michelle's keynote this morning, it was brilliant. And she was talking a lot about how activities that you do in the first lesson and how you kind of bring in students, maybe you focus on stats, maybe you focus on relationships. I do this drawing activity in my very first lecture. I don't use guitars, I use cats, but that's just my brand. But I use this, and I'm going to use it the same way with you, which is to get you to draw a guitar and then do something kind of fun with it, because drawing is fun. And by far, of all the kind of apps and things I do with my students, the drawing one is the one that they think is the best. Anyway, I'm talking a lot, but what do we really want to know? What we really want to know is, what do your drawings look like, right? What do your drawings look like? Okay, now Michelle talked about relationships as well. And so one thing I say to my students before I do this activity is that I trust them. I trust them so much that I'm going to let them draw, and I'm going to put their drawings up on the screen, and I trust them not to draw anything inappropriate. Now, you of course will know your students when in the relationship you have with them, that you can do this. But I don't know many of you, but I'm hoping I can trust you. So let's have a look. Here are your amazing drawings of guitars. Here we go. Look at that. I'm very impressed, people. It's looking great. Yeah. And what this kind of viewing tool allows you to do is allows you to drag them around as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you access. I just want to check there are no inappropriate ones first. I'm going to give you access to this as well. So if you in the app now, if you press refresh, sorry, you will also have access to these drawings here. So refresh the app. And you will now have these in front of you as well. And so you can drag them around. So what I want you to do is just let's give you a minute just to have a look at these drawings and think about the different ways that they've been drawn. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think of the different variables that you could create, different measures that you could create just based on how people have drawn a guitar. Okay? But yeah, so I'll give you a minute just to play around with that.
I think you've got a lute in there, Anna, and a banjo.
Well, I think sometimes I don't know if this is like frustration. I don't know, it's gonna yeah, or I'm not sure, like all the frets are just going all the way down. I don't know.
I don't think mine.
But you can imagine.
I don't think mine would have played a note.
So what I do with students is I pull these back and I get them into the groups, and I get them to even maybe drag them around and make groups of what they think might be similar looking guitars. And of course, there's different ways that you can define similar. Yeah. So why don't we give this a go? I've given you a chance. I've been talking about giving you a chance as well. In the chat box for me now, give me some ideas of ways that you might group or kind of think about how you could either qualify or quantify these drawings. So what I'm meaning there is, like, what are some categorical variables that maybe we could measure from these drawings, and what are some numeric variables that we could measure from these drawings? So we've got amount of strings. Yeah, so you could, depending on how how well it is, think about how many strings they managed to draw. So if it's a 6-string guitar, you might expect 6, but of course that's not the only type of guitar, and I wasn't specific. So amount of strings would be a numeric variable. We've got orientation, yeah, or the direction. Of course, we're like math people, right? So don't we mean angle? How big the guitar is. Yeah, that one's really great, Shakila, because you can see how much space the drawing's taken up. So this is a very tiny guitar, even though it was like a big square available. Whether they managed to draw a hole or not, right? And sometimes that's to do with what they started with drawing first, right? Because I said you had 20 seconds. So sometimes people start with the outline, but sometimes they kind of put the whole on first, because in their brain, that's what they think is the most, like, that's what they think about a guitar. I tried this yesterday, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember if the hole was like higher or lower up on the body of the guitar, which I thought was pretty funny. Oh, the knobbly bits at the end. Oh, yeah, the knobbly things, the things that you tune the strings with. They've got a name, and it's gone.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, tuners. Okay, so this is cool. So I think you can see, like, this is, I love doing activity on the first lecture because the students are being creative. They make a drawing, and then from that drawings we say, like, look at all this data that we can measure. You know, I don't do heights or weights or eye colors or those kinds of things. This is like cool stuff, and it's coming from them, and they feed back to me a bunch of variables, and I'm like, oh, hey, we just learned some stats. We just remind ourselves about like categorical variables and numeric variables, and how they work. Okay, awesome. Right, so I've got another question for you though, which is I focused on the drawings of these guitars. What else do you think in terms of data might have been measured while you were drawing those guitars? What else do you think might have been measured as you were drawing those guitars? Any ideas? So Wendy's got the time it took. Lisa says stress. Okay, let me rephrase. What else might have been captured digitally as you were drawing the guitars? Which at this point, Lisa, is not your stress levels. I haven't got a thing for that yet, but so we've got time, number of strokes, where you started to draw, number of strokes again from Wendy. Wendy actually, she's an insider. She's got insider information about this. I know she knows where this is going. Okay, good. So there's things to do with the actual, like, the digitalization. So of course, you know, you drew in the app that I made, so I must have recorded that data somewhere, right? So that we could like redraw the drawings, which means each of the strokes, which is the same as like the lines, we could recreate that. And other things. So yeah, good. How many times you took the pen off the screen? Yeah, the percentage of black. Awesome. So Anne's thinking about like pixels. So let me just go back here for a second. So you can't, oh, sorry, that's things on the way here. So each of these, you know, the stuff that you see in black is a really, really small pixel, right? That's been in black and the rest is in white. So we could work out the percentage of the whole square that is black, which would be the drawing, right? So we could do that. I haven't, but good idea, Anne. For next time, I'll add it in. I have done some other things, in particular one that you maybe didn't even think about, because I also use this opportunity to remind my students that data is collected every single time that you interact with a web page, including my harmless, friendly, fun apps. So let me show you the spreadsheet for this. And this is just some of the things I've collected. It's not all of them. So we have a timestamp, so I know when you did the drawing. I know whether you used a desktop or a mobile phone, so I can see here already that most of us are on our desktops. I've recorded your screen width, okay, so how big the screen is, it's in front of you. Uh-oh, creepy time. I also know where you are in the country, because whenever you access a web page, you're sharing your IP address. There we go. And I love it when my computer likes to do security warnings for me while I'm doing a presentation. So I know where you are. Not specifically where you are, just your general location. But that seems to creep out my students enough that they think about what location they're sharing. So here is all of the points, and it looks pretty crazy. What I've had to do is, because you've all got different screen sizes, I measure the points in terms of the percentage across the x-axis and the percentage across the y-axis. Okay? So here what I've done is I've put the very first point. So point where you first started your drawing. I'm going to do this in Google Sheets, not because I am a fan of using Google Sheets for making plots, but just because we're here, why not? So if I make a scatter plot out of this really quickly, this will show us across all of our drawings where our finger went to first. Obviously not that one because it's a scatter plot. There you go. Now, Google has you know, made axes that don't always, it should go from 0 to 1 because 0% to 100%. I think you can already see here that it looks like over half of you, or nearly all of you, started at the top of the square, yeah? And then possibly even in the left, that top left quadrant. Yeah, and I think that's kind of cool as well. So that's another way of thinking about kind of some bit of coordinate geometry, but thinking about from the drawing as well. So the opportunities are endless. But yes, the other things you guys talked about it here. So we've got the number of strokes. So the number of a stroke is each time you take your finger or your mouse off the screen and start a new part of your drawing. So we've got that. And we've also got the time it took you in seconds. So it's some from your first to your last 53-second person there. You thought that I might not be able to tell, but I could tell that you took longer than 20 seconds. You might have got distracted. Don't worry. So yeah, so that's all that, and that's just some of it. I mean, I could have collected a lot more data from you, but I just wanted to just point out to my students, again, on this first kind of like activity, that it's not just the fun app side. You've also got to think about what other data is being collected from you at the same time. Okay, and just really quickly, because we can, and I made this in advance just so we could have a look. Oh yeah, so let me just put this on. If we refresh the app now, let's give it a go. Just want to show you putting a couple of those things together. If you refresh it, this should work. Here we go. So what I've done here is I've just highlighted with a green dot where that drawing started. Okay, because I think that's really cool too. So again, we can have a look at it. You can have a look and think, you know, how our basic idea here is how do humans draw guitars, and you can start to sort of have these ideas of like, maybe there's a you know, maybe there's something about where you start the drawing and maybe about what the drawing ends up looking like, right? So if you were to like kind of like just bunch some ideas out based on that, you can chuck them in the chat box. Sorry, what do you reckon? If you just had to like just chuck out some ideas of, is there something going on between where you start and what your drawing ends up looking like? Is there any kind of pattern that you see maybe about how it might go? Okay, so let's go 8-star drawing at the top. Yeah, and then a bummy body. So what I'm trying to think of is like, is there a way that we could possibly kind of work out how someone ended up drawing it based on maybe where they started? Do you know? But that's just an idea. Okay, so okay, so here we go. So here's the two things we'll focus on so far. Is we've got people and them drawing guitars, and you've got a little bit of data that could be collected, like the number of strokes and how long it took, right? And hopefully there's already some ideas here of how those things might go together. So I want you to think about how people draw guitars. And what I want you to do for me is think about any ideas you've got so far. So anything we've done so far, we've listened to some music, we've looked at some lyrics, we've looked at some drawings of guitars, we've looked at some of these data that might be collected from drawing guitars. What I really am interested in is at this point, what are all the ideas that you've got so far that you think you could do some sort of investigation with or kind of explore further about how people draw guitars? So if you refresh the app for me, it's got a little app where you can just chuck some ideas in. So anything at all, like an idea or a question or like something you think would be kind of cool to take further, any idea at all, if you just jump into there, refresh the app, chuck it in, don't try to word it carefully at all, just like anything you want, just chuck it in there for me. Yeah, so any ideas at all? So like if you've got, we've looked at how people draw some guitars, we've looked at a little bit of data that we could measure. What's something that you might think so far? Like if you had to say like maybe one way that you think people typically draw guitars, you could chuck that in as an idea. Maybe you are interested in thinking about whether there's a relationship between any of the kind of variables or the way they've been drawn. anything at all to do with the drawings or the data, any kind of idea that you're like interested in pursuing further? And if you are still struggling for ideas, here's one thing you can do for me, is if you had to make a hunch about the angle that people draw their guitars, what kind of, like looking at what we looking at our drawings, what's your hunch for like maybe even what angle people draw their guitars at? Okay, I just looked at the time and it's 12:45 already, which I'm laughing because this always happens whenever I do workshops, but it also, this was not, there's a whole bunch more music stuff in here. Okay, so I am going to show you where this leads to. The idea behind this is that there's a whole bunch of things that you could do with drawings and with the nature of what data we can collect from drawings. And what I really want to encourage more of is starting off these kinds of investigations by doing something really open, having lots of discussion, sharing what kinds of things we might want to explore. And there's so many things that you could. Some of the things I'm just seeing on the things that you've entered are things between how detailed the guitar drawing is and how long they spent drawing it, whether the people start at the top and draw the neck first. Does it matter where you start and how many pen lifts or strokes that you have, and also you know, how long it takes to draw and how many strokes someone's made as well. So there's a bunch of ideas coming out, and this is what I'm going to say is e-PPDAC, which seems appropriate. You know, you put E in front of stuff that's online, but also for me the E comes from exploration. So what I really want to see is lots of exploration within the data context, lots of ideas, lots of questions, really informal stuff, building lots of curiosity. We can use your class as an initial starting point, you know, pulling in drawings, having a look at those, and then from that, deciding on a specific investigation to carry out after that. So in this case here, you know, we've got lots of ideas that we can generate from our own drawings. Some of the data I've shown you that's been collected. Now let's pick one of those ideas, let's be a bit more specific, and let's try it out with a different set of data. And the reason why we have to become specific is because we're going to only have access to that data set. And that's what kind of makes us need to be a little bit more precise, right? So going from how do people just draw guitars, like just general ideas, like what might be going on, we're going to narrow that down a little bit and say, well, how do people in the quick draw game draw guitars? The quick draw game is very similar to what I just made you do. You get asked to draw something and you get 20 seconds. The thing about the quick draw game is that it's actually AI as well. So it's trying to work out what you're drawing as you're drawing it, which is why it's good to have a discussion about like the kind of things about like how would, you know, how maybe could you work out what someone drew based on the points and things like that. But yeah, so what it gives us here though is a massive bunch of data. So in the quick draw data set, you've got over 111,000 drawings of guitars. So there's a whole bunch of them, so many of them. And the idea here would be that a student would pose a question that they want to investigate, and then they could explore that using a sample of these drawings from the website, okay? And because we're going to try to answer that question with this specific set of data, which is the quick draw data set, that's when we get specific about what we want to investigate. So Other things that are good to kind of help with the context is obviously to play the game and a little bit more about it. But the tool itself here, Learning Statistics is Awesome Drawing Strokes is one of the ones that I've created. I'll just shove that into the chat box for you here. And the idea here is that if I was to say, like, I think that most people when they draw guitars, that they draw on an angle to the right, okay, so some sort of angle on the right, then what I could do is I could go in and I could pull in a picture of a guitar or drawings of a guitar here. I'm going to do 20 because of just time constraints, but if I go in and take a random sample of guitars here, I get to decide how to sort them. So here I'm going to say, let's say to the left, and here's drawn to the right in terms of the angle that it's on. And I can move them across the screen. That one, if it's completely horizontal, you have to make a choice of which angle it's on. And the idea though is that I've already kind of written my question before this. So I've already got like an idea that I think I'm gonna like maybe confirm by using this random sample from the quick draw game, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna kind of try it out. Let's say it's like to the right, like this. Okay. So there you go. So that's just 20 really quickly sorted here. And then what you can do here is tap into the data that came from it. So if I say, show the data table, what you're gonna see here are some of those things we talked about before. So we've got how many strokes were made for these drawings. We've got the drawing time versus the pause time. So the drawing time is when the finger was moving on the screen. The pause time is the time between like taking your finger off and putting it back down again, but in all sort of added up for the whole game. The game time is those two values added together for the whole game time. You've got some other things here. What country? Because the same thing's happening. It's using the IP address of where you are. You've got the hemisphere that you're in, the day that it was. And here, this is the variable that we've created, which is whether it's the right or left. And then what that means is that we can take this data. I'm going to get some links to it. I can jump into, let's say this is level 3. I can jump into the bootstrapping module and I can have a look. For example, first of all, categorical variable, I could bootstrap off that a confidence interval for the single proportion, have a look at what proportion of all guitar drawings might be angled to the right and see that, oh, somewhere between 50 and 90%. All right. And then I might say to myself, well, you know, in terms of the game time, the game time finishes when either 20 seconds is up or the game has decided what it is, let's say a guitar. Did it matter if I drew it to the left or the right? So let's compare left versus right. You can see initially there's a bit of a shift in the sample means, but let's bootstrap off a difference between the two means. Let's do that, let's build it up and let's see what we get. Okay, now obviously I would do more than a sample of 20. I was just doing that quickly to show you in this video. But a sample of 20, you know, the smaller the sample, the more variability there's going to be. So here we go. So this is our confidence interval here from a -1, so 1 second lower to 4.3 seconds higher in terms of the game time on average for the left drawn versus the right drawn guitars. Okay, so that's just a real quick run through, which ends up being a little bit more about drawing than music. Sorry, but that wasn't all of it. Anyway, look, I also do this with hands-on drawings. Michelle gets people to draw horses. I get them to draw cats. So you can fully do it as a hand-on drawing one as well. But the drawing app itself, I'm actually going to be releasing soon as one that you can use yourself. So you'll be able to set up your own drawing space, capture drawings from students, and also get the data and display their drawings as well. Because out of all the things that I've been trying out for my students, yeah, the drawing based stuff has worked really, really, really well. Okay, I know we've run out of time. So what I'm going to do is these slides are going to live in the same place where you are now. So the page that you're on for the app, after this finishes, I will go in and change that and put the slides there instead. And so what you'll have access to is also some more activities that are based off this music. And I'm going to show you the results of that survey as well, which also had a little bit of a trick in it. You might have worked it out, but yeah, but I won't tell you. I'll leave that for a surprise, but when you come and look at these slides later. But I'll just finish on one little aspect, which is to say that, of course, I have held back a bit of the data science stuff, but where I take this with my students further is to say, well, what if we had thousands of drawings of guitars? And I think from this perspective, you can see that angle idea really, really stands out. Is there a way that we could actually do something computationally to sort all these drawings out in terms of maybe the angle that the guitars are drawn? And we can use algorithms like clustering algorithms. There's an example with some ducks being clustered. I use ducks because then I can say cluster ducks. But yeah, we could do the same thing with the guitars. And so it's a nice segue through to thinking a little bit more of that computational aspect of analyzing data as well. But yeah, I will leave it there for now because we have run out of time, but I will update these slides. There's 2 or 3 more activities around this music theme as well. One is around linear regression, so doing a bit of bivariate analysis. And one is about experiments and randomization tests. So yeah, I'll put those, they're in the slides, you'll have access to it later. And my apologies for taking up too much time with drawing. Wendy's asked about the app. Yeah, I am going to share that, Wendy. I'm just, the Faculty of Education, the graduate ed students, they're going to try it out for me in a week or so and just check that it works on their side, and they'll release it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Anne.
Shall I? Well, I fell out. My power went off, and I'm now hotspotting. So I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'll just say goodbye to everyone, but really to thank Anna for the amazing work that she's done. I just need to get a screen up here. Go away. Not you. Don't you go away. Presenter mode. Right. Just really want to thank Anna. I love it how I'm talking about music and cats and all that, and then bang, I'm in the data world all of a sudden. And it just reminded me, you know, an old teacher like me still looking for herself in the data, and that's what the research is saying, is that students, they have to see themselves in the data. And you just do that so beautifully, because there's a real deep connection there, especially if you've got a mate that you're doing it with, where you're saying, what does your guitar look like? And that's a really important view to see case and individuals, and then to move to aggregate views of data and see the data as a shape and a whole. So it's really cool. I love it how you do that. And I also learned something new about Google Sheets, the Randomize Range tool. That is fantastic. And just thanks so much for being so, I don't know what the word is. I just can't capture how infectious your data stuff is. So, and thanks for sharing so much and taking your time to share. I'm sure we all thank you. So just a couple of things from the AMA. There's something coming up from fractions to be advised, but Maths and Stats Day, you've got to go, you've got to send your whole department, do what you can to get all your teachers there. It's such great professional development. It's our networking day, and it's a day to be with your tribe and your people. And we all love to see you there, and hopefully you can all make it. And the other thing is resources are all going up on the AMA website. Please, there's some feedback. So if you like what you've seen, or if you want something else or something different, please give us some feedback. It's so great to have so many teachers from around the country joining us. And we hope you really, if you like what you see, please share it with your colleagues. They can watch PD in their pajamas some other time. It'll be great. All right, so we're gonna sign off now. E noho rā, and thanks heaps for joining. We'll see you next time. And yeah, that's us. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, sunny Saturday. Bye for now.